In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome.
I guess we're going to end that just a little bit early today. No, I don't want to. Oh, bummer. So I must have hit my space bar. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today. Welcome to Surviving Together. That's a big, big bummer. I'm going to adjust my camera because it seems to never want to be in the same space, no matter what I do. We are going to be dealing with a pretty in-depth, pretty serious topic today. So if you find yourself triggered or about to get triggered, please, 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 please take care of yourself. Okay. I want everyone to be safe. It's not going to be graphic. Okay. So if you're worried that there's going to be graphic details involved or anything of that nature, there will not be. Okay. Just an FYI to put that out there. Anytime I deal with true crime or a trial that's going to be out there, there's going to be a very specific reason for it. And with this case, honestly, it smacked me upside the head. And that's because I don't watch news. I don't watch TV. I don't key into the news. So I had no idea about this case until something came across my feed and I was looking for something else. And I was just blown away by the facts of this case and what this case could mean for not only France, but for the rest of the world to follow as well. So I'm super, super, super excited to bring this to you guys today. Excuse me. Little tired, fighting that right now. But other than that, doing good. I want to check in with you guys first to see how everyone is doing. I washed my hair, if you couldn't tell. It's all wet. As Janet knows as well, I'm thinking about going Crystal's length because it just takes forever to wash your hair. And speaking of Crystal, there you are. Hey, hello. How are you doing? Shannon, good to see you. Deidre, in and out. That's totally fine. I'm going to be really interested, Deidre, Mock, if Mock gets on, what you guys are noticing from across the pond. Because this is a huge case everywhere, but really big in Europe. And very interested to see how Ireland, how Germany, your average citizens are taking this case. I have a friend whose parents still live in France, and I want to talk to him. I want to know. Speaking of Mock, there you are. Janet, welcome. Try shampoo for the win. Absolutely, and I would have, but I didn't think I could go another week. Yes, I will say week without doing it. It was getting pretty gross. Let's see. You just shaved your stud. Believe me, there was a moment in the shower this morning where I was just like, just cut the flipping thing off. It took 3 washes to get it totally clean. I washed my scalp, washed from my head near my head, and then like the length of everything gets its like own wash. So it's quite the process. Not something we like to do every day because then we have to conditioner it and leave-in conditioner. It's just a whole process. trying to get it to where it will be nice. It is just hair. It grows back. You can do whatever you want to it. And that is absolutely 100% the reason I never flipped out when my son said he wanted to cut his hair this way or that way or the other thing. We just always had a great talk about what it would look like ahead of time, how comfortable he would be if he didn't like it, and what people could possibly say, and was he okay with that? Was he going to be able to make it through any bad comments that were said? We threw it all out there. And it's the same type. He wanted to wear his nail polish that he had put on over the weekend to kindergarten. I'm like, knock yourself out. It's blue. I mean, it could have been pink for all I care. We would have the same conversation, which is some kids may make fun of you for it. Most likely, most people won't even care or even notice. And, in the end, it was fine. My dad threw a hissy fit, though. Oh, my God, you're going to let him go to school with nail polish on his nails? Then again, anytime his hair touched his collar, he's like, about time for a haircut now, isn't it? He's very much in that, military mode. Jadri, you just got your Wi-Fi back, and you've been avoiding reading about the case. Yeah, I would say so on a daily basis. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot new going on. There are some, I have not been able to, I really wanted to read the testimony that had gone on last week, and I was not able to pinpoint a copy of that I could actually read in English. So I am actually still looking for that. This case is supposed to go through the end of the year into December. So at least. So we've got time with this. I'm sure that we will be following up as more people take the stand. I'm going to kind of just talk in some generalities right now and really trying to talk about why this is such an important case, why everyone is talking about it. Yes, it's historic, but why is it historic? What has this meant for SA survivors in general and for the survivor in this particular case? So before that, let's throw up some ones for anybody who needs them today, guys. I know that we've got several members who are feeling pretty down on their luck, down and out. Some are just down. Whatever your situation is, whatever you need hugs, luck more for, we'll send it out into the universe for you, okay? So if you need them, take them, please. Let's see. What else has been going on? Well, I saw you guys on Wednesday, so I can say what's going on during the week. It's really just since Wednesday, right? What's been going on? Just busy. I've just been super busy with work. Had a project that wrapped up this week. Looking for more work for next week, so we'll see what happens. I don't have one locked in right yet, but I throw my name out there for a few things, and the directors in this case are supposed to get together and talk and see if they've got more work. So we'll see where things go from here. As of now, I'm workless, but I have the utmost in faith that I will have work soon. So we'll see what happens with that. And I have the cutest short of my cat to put together. It's only 9 seconds long. I actually might make it 8 seconds because of the way that I think I want it to end. So I may make it even shorter, but I think it's flipping adorable. Maybe I'll take a new one that's a little more light because it's in the dark. You can't see it great. And I think when I get it on YouTube, it's going to be even darker. It may not be quite. Can you guys tell the color in my face is already starting to fade? It's like I will look white and deathly ill, and the rest of my body will still look tan. It's the strangest thing. I know. I'm going to have to change the filters, I think. Make myself look a little tanner for you guys. We'll see. Sorry, I got wet hair on the back of my neck, and I hate wet hair. I do not use a blow dryer anymore because it just makes it too frizzy, and I got to deal with all of that. You don't think I look good? Oh, good. I got the filters right. Yay. Okay. So if you guys need to step out during this, please do. Your mental health, 100% first and foremost. Okay. And if anybody needs to chat because of this, please shoot me an email, survivingtogether, sass@gmail, and I'd be happy to touch base with you in regards to this. So, what do you think? Have you been following this case? Does anybody not know anything about it? Like when I did, I was like, historic rape trial. Huh, wonder what that's all about. Because that's what everyone calls it. They call it France's mass rape trial. And it is a horrific case, Janet. And because of the victim's lack of knowledge in regards to these essays, that's the most horrifying for me. And we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects from this case. But one is going to be in regards to not only the victim's lack of knowledge, but her family, anybody looking for anything after the fact to try and clue themselves in that the defendant was like this, that he was capable of doing this. It's just really, really bizarre. Absolutely, Janet. Absolutely, absolutely. His apology rang pretty hollow, didn't it? So the defendant is the husband, and he did apologize, but it was a very crappy apology. And I've got that on here too. So without further ado, why don't I just get started that, because I could keep reading your comments and just keep talking and never get into this case. And I am uber excited to bring it to you. I'm not uber excited because I don't have my notes organized. They're kind of scattered, which, is par for the course for me when I take notes. But generally, then I like putting, say, trial stuff together with trial stuff, or background information with background information. So if I go back and forth a little bit, I'm sorry. I think I've got most of it committed to memory so that it won't be such a huge deal. But I'll definitely be checking my notes and making sure that I'm getting you guys the most accurate information that I can. There are a couple of sources that I will put into the description after this. And they're sources that I used that I thought did a good job with putting things together and that presented everything in a very fair way, as well as one book that is out there that you could read in regards to this case. Yeah, you guys had horrible, horrible storms, and down south too. Oh, Shannon made it through. Good. Yeah, my cousin's in Jacksonville, and I checked in with her, and I was like, are you okay? She's like, I'm safe. Don't worry about me. I'm just like, meh, whatever. Was not worried about it at all. Okay, so yes, we will give a brief overview of what happened. So, France's historic mass rape trial. Why is this case historic? Two main reasons. Well, there's three, but in a nutshell, the number of defendants, because there are over 50 in this case, and the mountain of evidence. In a lot of rape cases, it's he said, she said. Or you may have another family member that provides some insight into circumstances, and that helps bolster up the survivor's claims. And that can help so much. Here, the evidence is so overwhelming Defendant pled guilty immediately. So what happened? Okay, the smallest nutshell I can give you, if you don't know what happened, there's this husband and wife couple. Gisele, who is the wife, and Dominique, who is the husband. Currently, Gisele is 72 and Dominique is 71. Basically, the husband is alleged, but he admitted in court, so I don't have to say alleged anymore. He drugged his wife and essayed her while she was unconscious, and also invited other people on the internet to come on over and essay her while she was unconscious. Now, how do we get to the numbers? Well, it looks like this was happening from 2011 to 2020. Now, I say looks like because that's the time frame that they have evidence for. When I present the rest of this case to you, I think you will agree that his first time doing this to his wife or to just anybody in general was not 2011. It was much earlier than that. 2011 is just when he started videotaping everything, or the videotapes that he had since saved. Maybe he had been videotaping earlier and he had gotten rid of that evidence. Who knows? But it becomes quite apparent that this guy's done this before. This is not his first rodeo. He is not new to the block. He understands what needs to happen. And the way he, I won't say lures, the way he talks to the men, on par with them. He's been in these chat rooms before. He's been in contact with these people, or people like them, like-minded to him as well. Who there's something exciting about being able to essay a totally unconscious person. I mean, the victim, I may say victim sometimes, and I apologize. It's just because it's easier to, I am so used to doing a triangle for defendant, and that is typical shorthand, and V for victim, meaning whoever it was perpetrated against. So I may use that just because I use it in my notes, but I do mean the survivor Gisele in this particular case. Sorry, guys, I'm reading the comments. I think I'm probably going to have to ignore your comments while I'm giving us the rundown of what the case is. So this case, it's interesting because there seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy as to how it began. I have not been able to find a clear picture yet. I'm sure it's out there. If anybody knows, let me know. Correct, Crystal. One victim, Gisele, who was the wife, multiple people abused her. I'm not used to doing these types of things. I'm really excited to put this out as just a separate video, and I think that excitement has gotten me all kind of discombobulated in my head. That my ADHD seems to be really bad yesterday and today. I took an anxiety pill before I got on here, and I'm wondering if that's affecting me a little bit more than I care to, because I'm feeling a little slow. So bear with me, guys. We'll definitely be coming back to this and doing this again. I'm trying to decide. This is when I told you I didn't have my notes in order as to what I want to tell you first. So in September of 2020, defendant, it's alleged he was upskirting at a grocery store. And if you don't know what upskirting is, it's where you use your cell phone, a hidden camera of some sort, and you film up women's skirts. I guess is exciting for some people. Never quite understood it myself. But so they were going through, one narrative is, so the police were investigating this upskirting. And in terms, along the way, once they had decided to arrest him the following month in November, they confiscated all of his electronic devices. And that is when they ended up finding the essay evidence. There's another narrative out there that states that it was a detective who was working a cold murder case, a 1991 murder case. And this is in 1999. And he comes upon these images, lewd images, I'm assuming, of Gisele, of the victim. And the investigation takes off from there. Exactly which it is, I don't know. There's only so much I could find out about this other aspect of it, that the police might have been investigating, that it might have come from a cold case. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that aspect of it. But suffices to say, September, he's accused, Dominique is the gentleman's name, and I'm probably just going to use his first name because when I say defendants, I'll just mean all the other defendants in this case. And versus getting survivor and victim mixed up, I'll just use Gisele. She has let her name be used, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. So it's not a surprise. It's not a violation of her right to privacy at all in terms of talking about her name, so that everyone is aware. So the police come knocking on their door, come knocking on the Pelicot's door. Pelicot's their last name, Gisele and Dominique Pelicot. And they live in the south of France. They, I think, had lived in Paris, or at least more centrally. And then in 2013, they moved to Mauzan in the south of France. And it's a small town, I guess, only about 6,000 people. And so one of the questions that's out there that's people are trying to answer is, how much do people in this town know? Because obviously there were other people coming to Essayer. So were these people all just from that town? I don't know. It's it would seem like a lot that all of these people, if they were from that town and like nobody knew. But I say nobody, I mean in terms of the defendants. In terms of whether the average citizen knew, I think you're going to find out that no, they didn't. They didn't have any idea. The family didn't know. She herself, Gisele, she did not know. How'd she find out? Well, very interestingly. You're right, Mark. It's a control thing. It's 100% a control thing. And defendant actually admitted at the trial this week. He said that he had a need. I wrote it down too. I've got some of their quotes, but not too many of them. He said he needed to feel all powerful over a woman's body. So that's why having them drugged and unconscious was the pinnacle for him, because he could do absolutely whatever he wanted to that body without the risk of being told no. And you wonder, wow, where does that come from? Is it nature? Is it nurture? You know, it kind of comes all back to that. You feel the need to totally dominate somebody, to control them to that degree. Oh, Shannon, I'm horrified for you. I would be too if my boyfriend told me he had sex with me while I was asleep. I mean, it's one thing if you say, hey, if I'm ever asleep and you feel like in the mood, go ahead. And if I wake up, I'll join in. If not, you just had a good time without me. People agree to that all the time. And that's okay. They've agreed ahead of time. There's consent. That's the whole issue with this. There's no consent. And we'll get into why some of these people thought that there was consent or think that there is no rape. They use rape a lot more often than sexual assault over in France, apparently, at least the way that they are speaking in the trial and speaking in the media. So it's more unusual for us to hear it over here now because we don't use it so often. I'll get into some interesting legal situations later, but so for one, we have to applaud the police. They took the September 2020 allegation of upskirting by the defendant seriously, and they didn't have to. They could have brushed this off as anything else, but they did take it seriously. Why? I don't know. Why did they take this particular one seriously? Again, that kind of leads me back to, was there something else involved? Were they already investigating from earlier? So the way it would have worked is they would have come across pictures online of Gisele, and they would have had to kind of work their way back. If it wasn't, in fact, they found her pictures in 1999 because they didn't have his electronics. They didn't have Dominique's electronics yet. So they only would have come across her online and somehow tracked her back that way. Now, it's possible that because somebody was working it and had these pictures, that when maybe they'd already identified the person. So when Dominique was alleged to have done upskirting, they're like, oh, wait a minute. Pelicot, that rings a bell. Pelicot. Oh, here we have a person by the name of Pelicot as a victim. So when they seized his electronic devices, they may have already known what to expect. I don't know. Just spitballing that way. She was 100% a live power, a live sex doll. Absolutely. So they come to arrest him November 2nd, 2020. They come to arrest Dominique. And he goes in their squad car with them. And Gisele, being the good wife, they've been married since they were 18 or 21, depending on which report you read. From very, very young age, they had been together. And in 2020, she was now 68 years old. So he's roughly the same. So she follows him. And they go down to the station. She's waiting. And after a little bit, she's called into a room to speak with a detective. And she's thinking, okay, well, maybe they just need some information from me and, we'll clear this all up and then we can go home. So they bring her into the room and they tell her, this isn't going to be really easy to see, but we really need your help with something. They say that after they question her for a while. And they're questioning her about, how's your relationship with your husband? Fabulous. Great. Super. He's a wonderful guy. We've been married for 50 years. Love him to pieces. Love my life. Never been with anybody else. Then they start asking questions like, do you take naps often? Are you guys swingers? Just other things to see if they can possibly explain away the photos that they have as being consensual. When it's obvious she has absolutely no clue as to what was going on, they put the evidence in front of her and said, do you recognize anybody in these photos? And to her horror, she had to say yes. That is me on my bed, on my stomach, with some strange man behind me who I do not know. And picture after picture after picture she had to go through with this and say, I don't know that person. I don't know that person. I don't know that person. They went through this 90 times. 90. 90 different men had essayed her at the invitation of her husband from 2011 to 2020, to almost the end of 2020, fall of 2020. 90. Now, it was brought out in trial that there's over 200 instances of rape that were recorded, that were found. So the remainder are all of Dominique, her husband, essaying her. So he did it himself. He didn't just film other people. But all of this stuff was kept in a file called abuses. Accurate description, at least. And under it, there was a folder for each person who had essayed her. And some of them had multiple times. So they had multiple videos within their folder. But dates, times, names, all labeled, all stamped. I mean, the case was gift wrapped in terms of evidence for the police. And obviously, they have not put out any of the videos. We have not seen even any stills with grainy pictures from the evidence. So I can't say, oh, it's obvious that she was asleep, or, oh, it's not obvious that she was, drugged. However, everyone who has seen the actual videos who aren't a defendant have said it's obvious she's totally unconscious. Like, she's just out. Like, even when you're sleeping, you kind of have some tension to your body. Someone tries to move you or something. You're not just this limp biscuit, this rag doll, just all over the place, right? You're not. So all the cries for that, well, maybe she was just sleeping. So let me tell you a little bit more about the crimes, and then I'm going to get to the trial. I'm going to get to what some of the defendants have said thus far and why we really need to be talking about this case. Shannon, to answer your question, nope. Gisele did not suspect a thing, ever. Neither did anyone in her family, ever. Friends, acquaintances, no one suspected anything. No one ever said that Gisele said anything that would indicate that A, she knew what was happening, or B, that she was consenting, that they had a liberal marital sexual relationship. Nothing to suggest that Dominique was this monster. Everybody loved him, thought he was great, wonderful dad, great husband. So she thought. For 50 years. She thought that they had a really, really good life. Yeah, they'd had some struggles, they'd had some monetary problems, but all in all, things had been really, really good. No, Shannon, she never realized she was unconscious. She trusted him implicitly. She had no reason to suspect that anything was going on with her, save for her health. And I'll get into that. Yeah, exactly. Her exact physical harm to date, like what she currently is suffering from, say from lasting effects of the drugs, don't know. They have not said that. However, this is what they have said. He was giving her lorazepam and Ambien, and he would mix it either in drink with dinner, alcoholic drink with dinner, or in her actual dinner, something along those lines. So whatever food or drink he needed at that time in order to be able to have the timeline that he wanted. And she did start to develop weird symptoms. And at first it was memory loss. And just so every often, then she noticed she was losing chunks of time. I mean, think of it. It would be like you are a DID patient, like you are somebody who has been diagnosed with multiple personalities or um, dissociative identity disorder. Thank you. God, I couldn't remember it at first. DID, where you just all of a sudden there's just this chunk of time that's gone. And most of the time it's over her regular evening anyway. Her evening and sleep. Oh, I must have fallen asleep early that night. One time she says she was having dinner, and the next thing she woke up in the morning. No recollection between it. So every time she had any of these, no recollection whatsoever. And it wasn't even like she was feeling particularly groggy the next morning. It wasn't like there was things that felt off that way. The memory problems got worse and worse and worse. And then eventually she was losing weight very rapidly. She was pulling out chunks of her hair because her anxiety was through the roof. And she was in really poor health. She was not doing well at all. And she does credit the police with saving her life. She's fully on board with that. If this had lasted another couple of years, she would have been dead. Her body could not take the consistent drugging. And it's not known how much she drank. It is known that they tried to make her out to be an alcoholic at the trial. Now, I'm not in Europe. I have not grown up with those mores, with the relation to wine that they do in France. So how much she was drinking on a regular basis that would be normal, I don't know. But he did know that mixing it with the alcohol made the effect more. And we know that because he has text messages where he was telling other people how to make their partner unconscious and get the most bang for their buck out of that medication. What they can do. Don't do this, do this. If she smokes, it may affect her a little bit differently, so you need to watch out for this. So he was giving pointers and tips and things of that nature. Just absolutely incredible. So she did see neurologists. Her husband always downplayed. Anytime the kids were worried about her, of course, he always downplayed everything. You know how she is. Mom's always worried about everything. She's just really stressed out. She just needs to rest. She needs to stop worrying about this and that and the other thing. And, all the placations worked. And he did it to her because she's like, I must be losing my freaking mind. But he took her to every single doctor's appointment, talked to her about her symptoms whenever she wanted. He took care of the kids. He took care of everything. According to her, he was like the perfect husband. Except that the disappointment I feel in the medical field in France, how it failed her, for me, is just astronomical. Year after year after year, she would go to neurologists and try and figure out what was going on with her. And they never could. One said, you need more rest. You just, you're putting yourself under too much strain. You need to calm down, and these symptoms should abate. One neurologist told her to take melatonin. She had gynecological issues all throughout that time. Yes. The husband, Dominique, from all accounts, it looks like he forbade them from wearing condoms, or at least if they had them, would ask them to take them off. She ended up with 4 STDs or STIs. I have not seen which ones, but they were all treatable. So that rules out some of them. She also had a very inflamed cervix, which, if left alone, can be a killer on its own, which of course was being left alone. It was ignored because nobody was thinking STIs. Nobody brought it up. She'd been married for 50 years, for Christ's sake. She was in a long-term committed relationship. Why in the world would they think STI? Even if all the symptoms are matching. It just goes to show you how narrow-minded they were. They couldn't see outside the box because that didn't fit the scenario of what is traditionally, is how we look at, how rape culture is in general. Oh, absolutely. Exactly. As it turns out from the trial, she did cheat once, actually, on her husband. And that's been brought out. And she knew all of this going in. She knew her life was going to be torn apart, but she said it's worth it. So the fact that she admitted it, really has nothing to do with anything, actually. I'm just thinking about the doctors now. You're right. It was, I don't know why the doctors didn't think about any of them. She never got any help. And I don't know what medications they might have put her on because of that. And that's a concern as well. Was she put on antidepressants? Was she taking them in addition to lorazepam and Ambien that he was mixing with her stuff? And we know from text messages that he sent out that he sometimes didn't do it right. It was too light, and she would wake up or be almost waking up, so he had to, double down on the dosage or, increase it or whatnot, and which he did without a care to how much he was actually giving her. At least that's definitely the way it appears. And then you have the doctors who gave him the lorazepam and the Ambien. I am not up in the benzo world, but apparently he was able to get 450 lorazepam over the course of a year. Like, that was just 1 year that has been noted and recorded. And that's a lot. That's what I've been told. But you break that down, and there's 365 days in a year. That is taking lorazepam at least once a day, and then sometimes twice a day, every day. And I thought it was more of an as needed type thing. I didn't think it was that you take it every day. But I don't know if it was a 2 milligram or a 5 milligram or whatever dosages they come in. I don't know how high it was too. You don't know over the years how his usage of it might have increased. Was he getting a lot more towards the end? So there's definitely a call for some of the other people, the medical professionals who were around her at this time, to be looked into, because he said this is just not normal. So I don't know in regards to that nobody clued on to anything with this in terms of the doctors just really boils my blood. Because I think, and I'm sure she does too, what if he had given me too much that time? What if I'd never woken up? I mean, it's heart-wrenching. He said in his apology to her that he forgives or that he regrets what he did. Okay, you're caught now. I'm sure you do regret what you did. He said, I'm sorry to you and to the children and to the grandchildren, and I apologize. I'm sorry for what I did. The daughter asked one of the policemen, and I think this was still in November, or it might have been in March of the following year, asked if her dad was remorseful when they talked to him. And they said, no, but he did thank us for taking this weight off his shoulders. So there you go with that. I don't know. I don't know where to put that. So where are we standing? Where are we standing right now? Well, the trial began September 2nd. It's going to be going on into December. Defendant stands along with 50 other men. 50 of those 83 have been identified and prosecuted for their part in taking place of essaying Dominique's wife. He is the only one who drugged her. They just came over and raped her. Now, Dominique himself in terms of speaking about, whether or not he had done something like this before, two things that we can say. It was brought to light that he was arrested in July of 2010 for upskirting. He pled guilty and was given a $100 fine. His DNA was taken, but nothing was ever done with it. So that was just a year later. So by July of 2011 is when they have the video evidence to show that Gisele was being drugged and raped by her husband and by these other people. How do you get people like this? How do you get 50 degenerates, or actually 83, 90, but 83 people they identified, and 50 of them they had enough evidence for prosecution, was able to see their face, or whatever, why they don't have whatever video evidence they have, why they feel that's not sufficient for these other 30 odd men, I don't know. But 50 at least are on there. Well, they met on the internet because Dominique used to post photos of his wife unconscious and either nude or in skimpy outfits. Now, to give you an ooch of an insight into why would you do something like this, Dominique said it started because he wanted to see his wife in some racy, sexy lingerie, but she was way too conservative for that. It was not something she felt comfortable in, not something she'd do. So what do? You drug your wife and you make her your doll and you dress her up just the way you want to. Whether he had this on his own or whether he came across this on the net, I don't know. He did meet a lot of people on a forum, a website on the web called, oh, I got to get the name of this right, because there were a couple other ones that they've since shut down as well, and I wasn't able to catch the name of them because they were in French. But this particular one was, oh, I have to go this way. It was called something like, oh, I'll find it. I'll find it. Ba, 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 ba. Can we start going? No, 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 no. Oh, so the files that they did find, the video files that they found, that we've all been speaking about, were, he had files everywhere, but these particular ones were on a thumb drive, and there were over 20,000 videos on it. Just unbelievable. 20,000 of them. And that she was sick for so many years. And that they could not figure out what was going on with her. Without them knowing, that was the name of the site. So without them knowing, I think we can pretty much say we understand what this website is about, and the people who trafficked it, what they liked. So there's a lot of messages that refer to the site. Now, I guess this is particular. It's been shut down since, but it was a site kind of like Snapchat, but here it was within a couple hours your chats got deleted. So I thought that brought a little measure of anonymity to this process. So that's how they were able to get people to go. Now, a couple of the points that I'm already talking about in terms of that I wanted to bring out is, one, how good at masking these abusers can be. Dominique was an incredible, in a really bad way, but he was an incredible masker. Literally, the family racked their brains afterwards trying to figure out anything that would give them an indication that he was like this. And they couldn't think of anything. Now, afterwards, Gisele, there were a couple of things that she brought up. And when you start talking about it, you go, well, that happened and that happened and that happened. Wouldn't you start asking questions? What you have to understand is this is over the course of their 50-year marriage. Once he asked her if she might be into swinging. She said no. That was it. That was the end of it. Once. One time she woke up to some sort of sexual activity, and it was just him. And she's like, what are you doing? And he stopped. I don't know, made some excuse. I don't know what the situation was, but it just kind of went to nothing. And one time she saw a message on his phone that said, I haven't received the photos. Very easy to explain away. So over 50 years of memories with this person, these are the only things you can come up with that might have given a slight indication that he had a little bit of a double life? Wow. There wasn't anybody that they could find. No one's come forward thus far and said, yeah, I thought he was creepy. Everyone's like, he was nice. He's a good guy. We like him. You know? So we'll see as time goes on whether that holds true or whether there's other people that start coming out, be it from more recently in the town that he's moved to since 2013 or from where he used to be. I don't know. We'll see what unfolds there. And one of the most disturbing things about this is, yes, the defendants all knew they were being videotaped. They all knew their face was on that videotape. Because that was the only thing that Dominique asked in return for allowing them to essay his wife. I get to tape it. I get to watch, I get to tape it. Didn't ask for money. Not a dime did he get from this that they're saying. It was all just because he wanted to. That's scary frightening. Just scary frightening. No, he's an absolute monster. Absolute monster. And I feel horrible for Gisele. And I feel horrible for the rest of his family. His daughter was 42 at the time that this all came crashing down. She said, my life stopped. I lived for 42 great years where I thought I had the most wonderful family in the universe. I had the most wonderful father. My mom was, something was wrong with her, but she's still a kind and caring woman. It gets even more depraved with the defendant because not only did he do this in their own home, but from the backgrounds that that the police have been able to find in several other pictures, that this also happened in the daughter's vacation home, in her bedroom. So it didn't matter. If they could find somebody who was convenient, he would set it up. It didn't just have to be in their home. But he did have a whole set of rules for the defendants when they came over. And you're going to tell me that based on these rules, two things. One, the defendants coming over didn't get a sense that she was asleep, truly, truly asleep. And two, that he just started doing this in July of 2011 when the videotapes started. No way in hell. He learned through experience what you needed to do and what you didn't need to do. Now, whether that was all his own experience or the experience of having people come over, don't know. But he had experience before this. One we know he did because he actually went over to other people's houses and essayed their unconscious wives. So not only did he arrange this for his own wife, but he was a participant as other husbands set this up for their wives. So for me, it's allegedly, but there's no doubt in my mind that he was doing this way, way, way earlier in his life than anybody's talking about, or at least that they have hard evidence for. I guess let's put it that way. It's going to be the best way. So here is this individual who was able to mask at such a high level, he literally fooled everyone. Everyone. No one suspected a thing. It's one of the things that makes this so outrageous. And it's not as like we can blame the police because he's been arrested several other times for, 4 different assaults of different scenarios or anything. He has one incident of upskirting. One. That was it. I don't even know if there's anything else in his file, police file. If there's any other crimes he's been committed of or anything. Excuse me. So that's what I want to talk about in regards to the defendant, Dominique, the husband, and masking. The other thing that this did is it exposed what they're calling in France as the everyman. 50 defendants, 26 to 74. 73, 72, depends on where your news source is. I don't know, maybe somebody just had a birthday, but roughly around there. All walks of life. All walks of life. A firefighter, a nurse, a teacher, an engineer. Those are just a few of the professions that I wrote down. So this is why Gisele, is being named a hero in France. Essay survivors, modern day Joan of Arc. Because in France, they have a right to anonymity. The survivors of sex crimes have a right to anonymity. She did not need to make her name public. She did not need to make her face public. She could have hidden behind a screen of anonymity, and rightly so. I'm not saying hidden behind as a bad thing. I'm just saying she could have. But she wanted to come out and speak for several reasons. One, she wanted other people to know they're not alone. You are not alone in this. If you've been essayed, you are not alone. The other thing is she wanted to shift the blame to where it belongs, on the perpetrators. Because to her, there was absolutely no let me say something different. She understood when she dropped her anonymity that a lot of people either can't come forward because they are too scared, which she made a statement in which she said, please don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Come forth and report. Whether or not your report goes anywhere or not, come forth and report. Because the more and more of these that they have, the fewer of them that they can sweep under the rug and say, oh, it's not credible. So by making this statement, by putting this out there, she is saying to the world, I am a person. I'm a person who has rights. And to everybody else who's like me, you're not alone. I understand. And I stand here with you. It didn't amaze me to hear all of the news coverage about the rape culture in France, and because of the patriarchal system that's still into place and entrenched in a lot of areas, places where it's conservative, times haven't quite gotten up to speed. I'll say liberal Paris, they're not quite there yet. The police aren't taking things seriously. Thankfully, they did in this case. The hope is that there will be some reform coming out of this, whether it's legal reform, which is desperately needed, or whether it's just reform in terms of training and education of professionals who are on the first lines, medical staff, teaching staff, the police. She 100% did, Mark. She decided not to let the shame stop her, and she threw it back in their faces. And she is standing tall. And every day she goes to that courthouse, she has standing ovations from people. And I could not be prouder. I seriously could not. I wish I could be in France standing every day out with those people in support of her. So she knew how many people were supporting her. And these other defendants, they have a right to anonymity too. And they've all activated theirs. They're not dropping it. They're hiding. They're truly hiding behind it. Now, I will say, out of the 50 that have been, that were arrested and that were going on trial, 15 of them have since admitted guilt and are going to take a guilty plea. So that's great. But that means 35 of them have said, nope, not guilty. We're entering a plea of not guilty. She had absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Exactly. Exactly. And that is the thing with rape culture, the stigma of rape. And the stigma that the victim has to suffer. It always boggled my mind. Whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, here is a person who's done absolutely nothing wrong and is raped. Why do we look at her any differently? Why don't we look with the same amount of disgust at the abuser? Because that's where it belongs. Yeah, I don't know how that fits in. So Mark's stating, France is more sex positive, like most of Europe, more flirtatious. Um, so maybe some things that would make you uncomfortable about somebody, being handsy or flirty or whatever here, that would clue you into something, maybe the weird or creepy, maybe isn't quite the case over there. Still, I mean, with this particular case, that has nothing to do with anything. What this did bring to light is this, I am going to call it, growing issue with what they call chemical submission. So that's the official term for drugging somebody. Here's the age-old question. Are more people being drugged to be SA'd, or are more people just reporting their SA? I think it's both. I think you have easier access to drugs in the last 10, 15 years. Excuse me. I really do. Overall, I think you have an easier time getting certain drugs medically that can be used for a chemical submission. Of course, there's GBH, roofies, date rape drug, or whatever name you want to call it. That falls under chemical submission too. But the bigger issue with chemical submission that this is bringing to light is that this isn't just a roofied at the bar situation. Chemical submission can happen in your home. Chemical submission can happen by somebody you know. And so all of the types of things that we've always been arguing are the case for any survivor. We're having to argue them again for chemical submission, going, this isn't just some stranger who poured GBH into your drink or, rubbed you down with body oil if it's Diddy's case. For those who didn't know, the baby oil that they found at his place that they confiscated from Sean Combs's homes did test positive for GBH, date rape drug, having it in there. I guess it can be absorbed into the skin and basically renders you unconscious. How lovely. How many people knew him? They were at least set up, if not rubbed down, by him. Party scene, yes. Some of you didn't know? No. So yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot more about chemical submission, obviously between now and the end of the year with this trial, but in general. And I will be honest, I was one of those people who the only thing I really knew about or thought about in terms of chemical submission was, being roofied. Now, date rape being done by your date, by somebody you know, I mean, that connection for me has always been there. But to have it happen like in your home or the home of somebody you're visiting, not just a thing at night where then somebody takes advantage of you. Yeah, Combs was just a lovely individual. Shannon, I do think they have more access to drugs because we have more drugs. It's so easy nowadays to synthesize different medications. Like, say for us in the US, you can't get it here. You can go to Canada and get it for cheap. You can go to Mexico. And some of these places you might not need a script for it, depending on what it is, here, the US versus other countries. So I do think that there is more access to drugs. Now, whether you want to say more access to legal drugs, more legal access to legal drugs, I guess you can continually define it and stretch it down. But in general, I think that there are. No, there aren't the pill mills like there used to be. They did crack down on that. That didn't mean that doctors stopped prescribing them. They just can't prescribe certain ones in certain combination without it being flagged. The other medications are still being given. Oh, Shannon, please take my opinion on the other side of the argument as nothing other than that. As I'm boasting my opinion on the other side of it. Who knows? We could both be wrong. You could be right. I have no idea. I know that I sound like when I'm talking that I may be arguing with you or sounding disagreeable, and I'm not trying to. I may disagree with you, but that's totally different to me than, I'm not trying to be a mean or a nasty person. Hey, Rick, what's up? It's easy to cook GBH at home, Deaudrey says. Wow, I did not know that, and that is absolutely nuts. That's bonkers. So, talking about this everyman thing, yeah, Shannon, I guess, I mean, you would know about it, traveling everywhere too. So, I don't know, I mean, what is the true case? To me, it just seems like if you can't get it legally, you can get it or make it. That's just the way it seems to me. I wanted to tell you some of the things that were said in court or that have come out. And I don't know whether these statements from these particular defendants were through their attorneys or whether it was from deposition testimony. These are statements from the defendants, but I'm just not sure in what capacity they were given and how these, how exactly some of them came to light. But, brief rundown. Rules for the abusers that Dominique had in place before essaying his wife. So when you come over, don't wear cologne, no smoking, no fragrances. Wash your hands thoroughly and make sure that you've warmed them up. So wash them in hot water or put your hands by a heater. Make sure your hands aren't cold. Before you leave the kitchen, make sure you're fully nude. Leave your clothes on the front porch. Park down the street. Walk to the home so you don't wake up the neighbors. And your cell phone stays in your car. Pretty much all things designed not to wake up a sleeping woman. Yet, some of the defenses that have been proffered. Let's see what page I wrote them on. I wrote them bigger because I was just like, oh, here they are. You're going to shake your heads right along with me. Number one, it's fine. It was his wife. He can do what he wants in regards to Dominique essaying his own wife. A bunch of people accused her of pretending to sleep and not actually being asleep. They said, we just thought she was asleep. We thought she was pretending. We thought that they were just, some kinky marriage, game that they had in their marriage. They're pretty liberal, and this was something that they did. And, says, well, yeah, she looked unconscious, but the husband was there and gave his consent, so it was okay. Yes. They are basing their not guilty pleas on the fact that the husband gave consent. I want to scream, what century are we in? Essentially, they never saw a need to get her consent. There was one defendant who says he was a little concerned. She was unconscious. I mean, like, obviously, truly unconscious. And he's like, she's okay with this? He's like, yeah, she's fine with it. She gave her approval, before before she took medication and knocked herself out, absolutely, she's fine with it. Again, husband gave consent. Husband assured perpetrator of wife's consent. Therefore, it was okay. Nobody felt the need to hear from Gisele herself. 100% as if she was his property. 100%. And what he said about, wanting to completely dominate and control a woman's body, I mean, to me, that seems to be the thread that binds all of these guys, isn't it? There's something exciting about doing something to somebody who doesn't know that it's happening to them. And a lot of people do question, how can she for 10 years not know this was happening? She never woke up? No, she never woke up. She never had any like dreams that seemed like she was being undressed, or seems like she was being moved, or seemed like, there was another person in her bedroom. No, nothing like that. Never an inkling, besides getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And the callousness. It's so incredibly difficult to reconcile in your mind the wonderful person that the outside world saw and the monster that lives within him. Because the callousness of that you must have for human life. He calls her a saint. He calls her the love of his life. Yet as he took her to doctor after doctor after doctor, as she sat losing her mind week after week, never did he stop. Never did he even slightly indicate something to a doctor to push them in the right direction. You're commiserating with them on one hand and causing their misery on the other. He must have felt like an all-powerful being. Just. Shannon, this is a point to be made, and I have thought about this. I thought about this a lot, and I'm trying to post your comment, and it's not posting for some reason. There we go. Shannon says, you do feel the effects on your body from having sex, though. Yes, when you're awake, when you're conscious. Dominique stated that he cleaned her extremely thoroughly so that she would not ever know. He made sure that the sheets were perfectly clean and dry. She was perfectly clean and dry. She was back in whatever clothing or non-clothing that she, wore to bed. Everything was the same. And so, no, she never felt any effects when she woke up. Never had a reason to suspect. I think something might have happened. It's not one of those, you woke up in bed, you're clothed, but your clothes are janky. They're off somewhat. Or you feel like your vagina is more stretched. Whatever it is. But I do know, and Crystal is, both Mock and Crystal make points that it depends on the person, and for this, depends on the drugs and how much drugs they gave her. And did they assay her, like, at the beginning part of the time that she would have been unconscious, or was it towards the end of the time that she was unconscious? I don't know. Would that make a difference? Your body's had several hours or 6 hours to acclimate to being clean again and not being abused. Is it going to acclimate back to normal so you're not going to feel anything? I mean, she did say she noticed itching and, she noticed irritation and things of that nature. somebody essaying her never crossed her mind. Let's reiterate, she had been married for 50 years to a wonderful man. She had no reason to suspect him. No reason to suspect anybody had been with her other than her husband, who, by the way, she characterizes as having a normal sex life with, an active, normal sex life. So, how much was normal for them? Once a week, once a month? I have no idea. But for whatever it was, she felt it was normal. I truly believe she did not know either. And she's been amazing in the face of the defense attorneys who have tried to paint her as not knowing, as just being asleep, as playing along, all of that. One of the aspects from a legal thing, well, she did, Shannon, she did wonder why things were going on with her body, which is why she was seeing the doctors. And gynecologically, she was seeing doctors. And obviously, they never figured out what was going on. A urinary tract infection, yeast infection, this, that, or the other. Well, where are you getting it from? Well, those can all just spontaneously, pop up, issues on your own. They don't have to involve another person. No one. To our knowledge, and I'm going to preface late everything with to my knowledge, or to our knowledge of what's been put out there so far. In all of my digging, I did not see any indication, otherwise. And again, she was 58 when this started, 57, somewhere around there, when this started in 2011. Part of the reason why she thinks that this was more just started then, with the videotaping, and that if he had been doing it, he hadn't been doing it on the scale that he was after the videotaping started, because they have not gotten into anything to where she was having any consistent type health issues before that time period. And it was only afterwards that it started. So whether that was he was drugging her, but he was drugging her with something different, or he was not drugging her, he was only participating in this, dealing with an unconscious woman as the perpetrator, going over to other people's houses whose husbands had drugged their wives and being a perpetrator that way. Yeah, who knows? We haven't gotten many information. They never tested her for STIs. Nope, not a one. And we don't have any information that it was brought up and yet pushed aside. Because it could have. If you were just talking to your own doctor and it's like, this really seems like an STI, da-da-da, and be like, yeah, right. Okay. It's something else that mimics that, because I've been married for 50 years. I've never stepped out of my marriage. Well, she knew she stepped out, but she had stepped out, like, I think it was years and years prior to when she was getting sick. So there was nothing that she could pinpoint. She's like, I haven't been with anybody else. There'd be no reason for me to have an STI. None whatsoever. So they're like, well, okay. So I think the doctors gynecologically probably, if they did raise it at all, probably just went along with her when she's saying there's no way. There's 100% no way I have it. The fact that you could have gotten it and not known about the activity that gave it to you, it's like nobody thought of it. I know. Husbands cheat, right? People cheat. She admitted she cheated. So why would it be so out of the ordinary? Part of what people are saying is because of where they live. They lived in a small, very conservative town. So thinking I'll say thinking outside the box, or just, I don't know, thinking that something had happened other than just these two people in a marriage, was anathema to them. I don't know, maybe. Do they have a culture of cheating in France? I don't know. Is it more than any place else? I don't know. I can tell you from the statistics that came across, the amount of essays that are reported that are found credible by the police are minuscule. Pathetically minuscule. Embarrassingly so. So if there's no other reform than taking the police and doctors and other frontliners by the hand and educating them on what it looks like, what symptoms could be, what things we need to consider, they definitely need some retraining. And one of the other big things about this that advocates in France are looking at is for a change in the legal law. Because although one lawyer stated their case law very, very clearly states that if you're unconscious, you're asleep, you can't give consent, therefore it's an essay. She said it's clear as day. Don't want to give the opinion that you can make it seem like I just totally blew my train of thought because I looked at something else. And I was just looking about this married issue. So Mock's saying that France is somewhat sexually liberal, even in the more conservative areas. So why it wasn't even on the radar? I don't know. Again, unless it was on the radar, but they so emphatically denied it that they said, okay, we won't do the test then. It's my only guess. There was a rape trial in France, and I have not looked into this, but one of the advocates was relaying this story that 74 or 78, something like that, there was another historic rape trial in France. And that is when their law actually saying, using the word rape came into being because of this trial. 1978. Even if you take 74 at an earlier date, makes me sick. So this is what France's statute reads currently. So essay is defined as the sexual penetration committed by violence, coercion, or surprise. That's it. I just knocked over my lamp. So what the advocates are looking for is they really want consent defined, or at least, outlined within the statute, saying, listen, anytime there's no consent, it's essay. Now, how do you get it in there, whether you put it as a subparagraph, whether you rewrite the whole thing, who knows, whatever, but they really want it in there to be explicitly clear in terms of this consent issue. Because one of the defense lawyers, and I was listening to him, brought up this thing in French law, and I do not know if it is true. You're saying it on national news, so you would hope that it is true, because otherwise he's a complete idiot. But he said in France, the law requires intent on the perpetrator, meaning you must have been doing that act in order to commit that crime. That was your intent. So if they can prove that your intent was not to SA her, your intent was just to have sex with her, then it's not actual SA. It just shows you the lengths that these defendants are going to. They're desperate. They're desperate not to, go to jail themselves. And based on everything that they have, these guys are going away. They're going away for a long time. So that's why it's so critical and why they're hounding her so much on this issue of either you consented beforehand or you were pretending to be asleep and you weren't really. So that was, you were consenting somehow when you pretended. I don't understand how they think that they're going to get around this. But yet they're going to try and paint her in the worst possible light you possibly can. Gotta love rape culture. This woman at 72 years of age stripped herself of her anonymity to lay her entire life bare for the world to see. It's not just your town anymore. This is for the world to see. It be picked apart and hounded on in the harshest light possible, because these defense attorneys are vultures and they'll do anything to help get their client off. And that includes destroying the survivor, trying to destroy Gisele. And she's been pretty strong throughout this. At least that's what we see on the outside. We know what goes on the inside. So the fact that she is willing to put up her brave face to the world, still dealing with all of the crap that she's dealing with inside, and say, I have the proof. I can be a voice for all of these people. I will stand up. And I will say, no more. No more shame. No more hiding. This is wrong. Period. Nope. Absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It's the people that are trying to make her feel ashamed. And it just sickens me. It sickens me to know what these survivors have to go through on the stand. Even in America, where we have rape shield laws and there's certain things you can't bring up about the victim, there's always things that can get in that are going to try and just smear her. Because by making her look worse, it somehow means that he didn't do it. Bad things happen to bad people. Doesn't make them right. So it's almost like, oh, you were a bad person, therefore you deserve whatever came to you. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Now, if you can believe it, guys, the case gets worse. Saved it till the end for you. So, shortly after Dominique was arrested. The rest of the family, they've got 3 kids together, 2 boys and a girl. And they all raced to her home to be by her side and to support their mother through this. The daughter gets a call to come down to the police station. It's like, oh, okay, can this wait? And they're like, no, I can't. You need to come tonight. So Carolyn goes down to the police station. They take her into a room, and there's monitors there. And they say, we need to know if you recognize anybody in these photos. And she's thinking, they got photos of my dad, maybe it was somebody else, and I got to try and ID them. She's like, I don't want to look at pictures that are like this or whatever. They're just like, we've chosen carefully. You just need to look at these few stills we've taken from, video that was taken. She's like, no. She looks at the first one, don't recognize the girl, because it's just a picture of a person. There's no other person, just a woman. And she was naked. And then there's a picture of her in lingerie, which is not hers. She does not recognize. And she's pretty certain she's drugged. She's unconscious. She says, the light's on. I would have woken up. You jostle me, I would have woken up. And yet somebody put me into different clothes? Yeah, I think I was drugged. I think he did this to me too. Now, based on what has come out so far, we do not know if he ever touched the daughter. We do not know how many times he might have done this to the daughter, drug her. The way it makes it sound is like there's a handful of pictures. And it's not even totally clear to me whether it's only pictures or whether it's video as well. But there's been no allegations that he has SA'd her. Okay. We just have the pictures right now as evidence. In March of 2021, so this is about 4 months after Dominique was originally arrested, it came out that he also had hidden cameras inside his home, in the bedrooms and in the bathroom. And he had taken stills from those. He had taken pictures of both of the daughter-in-laws in states of undress. In one picture, or I guess I'm not sure, it's a picture or video of the computer screen that he's watching, which is of the hidden camera in the bathroom. And he's watching one of his daughters. And the way he took the picture of his screen, you can see him as well, kind of from the side. And you can see that he's self-pleasuring himself while he watches the daughter in the bathroom. So the photos are enough to get the defendant on invasion of privacy. That's about as much as they can get him on for that. They're not considered, it's not considered sexual assault and rape. In France, there's no penetration. He is a lovely human being, isn't he, Shannon? Yeah. So it seems like there were pictures of the daughter with those hidden cameras as well. Since then, 2 nieces have come forward and said that he always wanted to play doctor with them, and he would never get them a toy unless they undressed. Now, again, these allegations, we have no backup for. There's no evidence of it. You've got family members trying to remember whatever they can to make sense of their world. I don't want to say that the kids, I don't want to not believe the kids until I see differently, until I hear differently. Then I'm going to take whatever is being said that the kids said at face value. Were they interviewed weirdly by their parents and given some suggestions to make it sound like this is what happened? Who knows? We don't know. All we know is we have some pictures of the daughters-in-law and the daughter. So nothing for the nieces or anything like that. And the daughter said her dad never gave her any funny vibes. She loved her dad through and through. He took her to school so she didn't have to wait for the bus. He'd pick her up at 1 o'clock in the morning if she needed because she couldn't find a ride. You know, he was there all the time for her. Again, the lack of a soul that you have to have all of this crap going on the inside about like who you truly are, and to be able to mask so well to the outside world that you're just like everybody else. That's incredible. Just absolutely incredible. No problem, Janet. We'll talk to you later. Give me a call. Oh, that's what I was saying about the dad. So the Dominique's dad. So Carolyn is the daughter's name, and she's allowed her name to be used in the media as well. So she is not an unknown. So Carolyn is Gisele and Dominique's daughter. And she said, Dad never gave me any weird vibes. She said, Grandpa, however, he was weird, and I did not feel comfortable around him. Neither did a lot of the family, have come to find out, at least later in life, because they had adopted a daughter, much like Mia Farrow and Woody Allen had adopted a daughter together. And much like Woody Allen did, Dominique's father eventually married his adopted daughter. And by all accounts from the rest of the family, she was essentially a slave. She cooked, she cleaned, she got him what she wanted, she did this, she did that. She could not change the TV channel without permission. She was a prisoner. She was a slave. The daughter said one time she saw the wife, the grandfather's wife, the adopted daughter, standing in the backyard, just staring off into space, pulling chunks of her hair out. You just know what her life was like. And it makes me incredibly sad. She must have had such wonderful hopes I hope she at least had a good childhood. I hope he didn't start abusing her until she was older. But that's probably not true. He probably groomed her from a young age, and that's why he was able to marry her and have what he had with her, because I'm assuming both of them are gone. Just, unbelievable. I just looked at the rest of my notes, guys, see if there's anything else interesting that I wanted to bring to you. Yeah, that little wrinkle about the rest of the family was something that I had not heard in a lot of news reports. So I know there's a lot more out there on this case, a lot more information that is going to come to light. Again, I want to get my hands on transcripts so bad. I'll figure out why. 2 comments from Gisele herself. Look at the thing, it's 5 o'clock. And I'll leave you with that in terms of me speaking about this case, directly and ignoring the chat. Two things that Gisele said. One, on behalf of victims. And I'm using that because that was the word that she used. She said, you cannot help victims if you yourself are ashamed of being one. And I thought that was a pretty good statement, because that is true. That is true. Very, very true. And bye, Shannon. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later. I just, I admire her so much for doing this, and for doing this at her age. And I say that because, I think there would be a lot of older people her age, 72, who would just want the anonymity and want to try and heal and move on with whatever life they have, however many years they have left after that. She did not need to be the face of chemical submission, but yet she is, and she's allowed herself to be. And when that defense attorney tried to differentiate between rapes, like there was one kind of rape that was okay because he didn't mean it, and then there was the rape where you meant to do it. So, there's different levels of rape. She said rape is rape. She said, to those who deny it was sexual assault, I say to them, for once in your life, take responsibility for your acts. Wow. Wow. That's a boom. That's a mic drop moment. Really. For once in your little pathetic lives, take responsibility for what you're doing. And so I applaud the 15 people who already have. At least they're standing up and taking their licks. I have no respect for them, but I'll give them my baby applause for doing something right after doing something so absolutely abhorrent and horrendous. And more than likely, it's because they had a good attorney who said, you're screwed. Really, with the videotapes that they have on you, and your face being right there in the center, and whispering, going, I'm not going to wake her up, am I? Yeah, some guys make comments to that effect. So that pretty much just, some of them probably just, there was absolutely no hope of coming back from it at all. I will post this, and I don't have it, I have not done it yet, but along with the links to some sources that I had for this, I'm going to put a link where I can find it to the daughter's book. So Carolyn Darien, and we think Darien's her pen name because she does have a different married name, and you can find all their real names online, but there was no reason to bring up the rest of the family and to call them by their real names, so I haven't. Her book is called And I Stopped Calling You Papa, and it details her and the rest of her family's experience from the time that they found out up until, when trial was going to start. So it doesn't deal with anything that they've learned about recently, just learning about it, learning about the other people in their family, and trying to move on and trying to cope. And she said this about her mom. She said a lot of people look at her as some, pillar of strength. And she basically said she's just a jumbled mess inside. which we know how that goes. She's doing her masking to the world right now to show the strength that she must for what she's doing. And then when she goes home, she can collapse in her pile and try and put her life back together. I cannot imagine spending your entire life with somebody, literally her entire grown-up life with somebody, to find out that they're this kind of monster at 68 years old. She said her mom much prefers to put the past in the past. She is a little concerned about her in terms of being able to deal, working through the trauma if the past is going to be in the past. But she says Gisele definitely has a want to remember the good. So whether that's a defensive mechanism at this point, whether that's part of her healing, whether she's come that far. I mean, she's had 4 years in between. So she has had a lot of time to heal and to go to therapy and things of that nature. Whether she is, I don't know. Just saying she's had a lot of time to heal. So it's not like it just happened yesterday. But she said, Carolyn, the daughter, said, in taking on that tact of her mom, of remembering the good stuff and not tempering it with the bad, with what he's doing. Carolyn said, and I know, Crystal, you're going to relate to this. She said, my biggest fear is that I will still love him. I think she said it slightly different. It might have been the opposite in terms of hate, but it was something like that. And I just, Crystal, I remember hearing you talk about, your experience before, and with that being, until she was 42 years old, everything was perfect in her life, she thought. Now, take perfect with a grain of salt, right? Nothing would have prepared her for this. And so her entire world got turned upside down and ripped out from her, and jumped up, just jumbled up and down. And I found my quote. I knew love wasn't in it, but it was the gist of it. What she said is, I'm afraid I won't be able to hate him. Because for her, she and one of the brothers, I guess, are still pretty angry about everything. They've not come to the acceptance level that their other sibling has, and that their mom seems to have. And so you wonder if it is, is this how she truly feels? Is this where she's truly come in her healing? Or is this just where she is in her survival right now? That to be able to move forward at all in her day-to-day life, she can't think about all that stuff that was done to her. She can only think about those 50 years with the man that she loved, who loved her. I know people go, how can he say he loved her and he still did all that? I know. But there's one side of me that thinks we all live with good and bad in us. Can he have truly loved her on one hand? And then the darkness inside him, I'll say forcing it. I don't think that's quite the right word, but forcing, encouraging, allowing, manifesting, whatever word you want to use, yet still be able to do this to her on the other side. I think the answer is yes. I think that some people can totally bifurcate themselves and be like, on the one side, they're this caring, concerning family man who loves their wife and children. On the other side, they're this monster. And that's a conversation for another time, something we've talked about, we've touched on many, many times is does that evilness, does that ugliness override all the good you've ever done in life? In terms of the victims and how do you, especially, you had a relationship with the abuser, and how do you reconcile that in your brain? Crystal, we're not sure if he was a sex addict or not. There are certainly a lot of the defendants who are claiming addiction. One, they're claiming either sex addiction or porn addiction. Basically, forced them into this. One person said his client just couldn't say no. I'm not certain what condition that is, but he just couldn't say no. Another guy said, "Well, I don't know. I just did what the husband told me to do." And I'm like, brain in there? Hello. But yeah, you're right, DeAudrey. Wow is the word. No, Mark, she can't have her entire life be a lie. How could you live like that? Because to her, he was a good husband. He was there for her when she was sick. Now, she really analyzes that and pieces that apart. He's the reason she's sick. And then you've got that whole, almost like a Munchausen thing going on. I don't think that was his intent. I think her being sick was just an offshoot of, or a result of all the drugs he was giving her. But who knows? He could have been getting off on that aspect of it as well. I mean, if his goal was, during the sex act, have her be completely unconscious to where he can 100% do absolutely anything he wants to her and have that power and control over somebody else's body in the daylight, then to basically still be having that power and control over somebody because they're that ill, I can see him feeding off of that. And therefore, she gets another symptom because I've given her more Ambien than I meant to. Whoa, oh well. It's not the thought, the good and evil dichotomy that I have a problem with, because I think that everybody can live with two sides, even two vastly different sides. But it's the callousness that he had to go through to lie, to say, "Well, I don't know what's going on with her. I don't have a clue. Must be her stress." To say to your children, "I don't know what's wrong with mom." That callousness, that level, oof, that makes my blood boil. For real. Be real. Hey, how you doing? It is disgusting, isn't it? I told you guys this was going to be a fun day ahead of time. That's next Saturday. But it was one I thought that really needed to be talked about because there's so many points here where we can educate the public about what chemical submission is, about who your average abuser is, what they look like, to bring up, to have a case so significant that you have the possibility to bring about legislative reform because of this. Wow. And she's not driving for that herself. It's other people who are advocating around this. But her trial has created such an atmosphere that they've been able to, and people are protesting and marching, and there's signs, and it's just wonderful to see. It's like a mini Me Too movement, all over again in France, as people are, again, pushing for reforms, pushing to be heard, pushing to be understood. Yeah, it is a loaded topic. We talk about a lot of those here. And sometimes there's just never a great answer to some of these, bigger issues that we contemplate. I will be fascinated to follow this case and to see what else comes out about it. I don't know how France's system works, so I don't know if after every defendant goes, if she has to testify again. Because she did testify, she didn't know any of these people, and she had no memory of any of these people, save for one defendant. She said she saw him around the neighborhood. Yeah, he was that close. He was a neighbor. He could walk over. And he might have wanted to check the wife out or something, because he came by on some ruse that the husband set up, and about possibly buying something at the home. And so the guy came around and was there a little bit. And then she'd see him, at the bakery, down the street, whatever. But that's the only place she knew him. So I just would hope she doesn't have to testify again. So she testified, the husband testified, or the husband made remarks. I'm learning about the French judicial system because I do not know a whole heck of a lot. I know that his health was bad, so he didn't come back to court on last week, late last week, I think it was. So they're concerned because of his health. What happens if he dies? I mean, they still got all the other guys. I don't know why he has to be there for there to still be a case, because they have the video evidence of the other guys. He has already stated, and he's already testified, that they knew. They can try and say they didn't know, but they knew. We talked about it ahead of time. And he even said, he said a couple of things. Again, I am not defending Dominique. When they read out the charges, he said, I admit to the charges in the entirety. I am a rapist, just like the others in this room. And at one point, when defense attorneys were getting up in Gisele's face pretty good, about whether or not she knew, and the consenting and the lying about sleeping and things like that, I guess he actually piped up in the courtroom and basically said, lay off. She didn't know. She knew nothing. And y'all, meaning the other defendants, knew exactly what the situation was. That I knocked her unconscious so that you could come over and have sex with her. So, I don't know. I mean, in the U.S., he died at this point. Oh, well, that sucks. Yes, it was very much planned out, be real. Down to his instructions to them to, walk down the street so you don't avoid suspicion with the neighbor. Don't park in my driveway. I don't want the neighbors knowing you're here. And also, you park down the street by the school. Drew the maps. and said, "You walk this way." And he told him exactly where to walk also, so that he avoided any neighbors who had motion detector lights. I mean, we're talking serious planning. And 90 people over 9 years, average that out, do your math. I said there won't be any math, and so I'm not going to do the math for you right now, but let's just all throw some ones out there for Gisele and Caroline and the rest of her family. I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking about what wonderful women Caroline and her mother Gisele both are, in different ways, having their lives just totally destroyed one moment from the next. I can only imagine. So from the bottom of my heart to Caroline and Gisele, mad respect, girls. Mad respect. You keep doing you, and we'll be here to support you. I'm just gonna read through a couple of your comments here. I know you guys were chatting away while I was talking, and that is totally fine. I'm glad you guys do. Okay, I think it touched upon when you guys were talking most of these. So, when they get more into it, when we've got more to report, and more than just, oh, one other person testified, if we get several other people, there's some more major developments in this. Once I have more substantive information to bring you, we'll do an update on this. I really hope, for France's sake, that the movement that they've been able to gain, the traction they've been able to gain in trying to push this topic forward, both in the political sphere, so that there's the political will to make changes, but also just socially and with everybody else there. It definitely has. I can only hope that it just, keeps rolling on. Crystal, yes, we can briefly. I do have a pretty busy evening hooked up, but we'll hook up either through email or online somehow. Okay, as soon as we get off this and I get a chance to go potty. But we'll make that work. So that being that's today's episode, guys. So really, that's my first delve into true crime. First time that I've talked about a case, but I don't think that's true. I think I might have talked about a case before, but it wasn't something that I just totally picked up and said, the case we're talking about. It was something else that I was talking about that the case kind of fell into. This was the first time I really went to, I gotta talk about this. No, everybody's talking about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. He's vile. I don't want to talk about him. He's the abuser. I want to talk about the wonderful, wonderful things that people can do. This woman, Gisele, for better, for worse, whether she wants to or not, which she did, but she's become the face of a new movement. And I really hope that the movement keeps this momentum going in France. Maybe we'll see some ripples for other countries happening. Wouldn't that be fabulous as well? anytime that there's essay reform, I'm happy. Well, reform in the right direction. Let's go that way. So, all right, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Not sure what Wednesday's topic's going to be. Maybe back on ADHD. I'm not sure. But I can tell you one thing is 1 week from today is our fun day. So get on your laughing shoes. Make sure when you join us next week, you're going to get ready to have some fun because it's just going to be a super silly episode. May have a special guest. I don't know. We'll have to see how things coordinate. But definitely be having stupid stories that I have found and some memes that I found funny that I will present to all of you. So with that being said, please remember, we survive together, never alone. And that's one of the messages that Gisele wanted to make sure that all of us survivors know. You do not stand alone, is what she said. Remember, you're valuable, you're worthy, and you're a survivor, which means you're strong. And most of all, you're loved, just for who you are, just the way you are. Mwah, hugs and love, guys. Till next time, can't wait to see you, can't wait to talk to you. Have a great one.